Hi everyone, in this video I'm continuing the part 2 discussion related to baby Ari and baby Leon's health. And I know in my first part 1 video I talked about women's health issues, but it is relevant because some of the things that influences women's health also influences their baby's health. So this is a secondary factor that also needs to be considered in the case of these babies because of multiple reasons. I've already mentioned about ureal, some of the things that can influence a baby's health, but again, just to look now just at baby Ari's case at first, or even both baby Ari and Leon's case. If you just look at the newspaper article that I'm linking here, in the online news article, there is a picture of the babies also that was posted with the article, and I'm assuming that is Leon and Ari's photos. And Leon and Ari in that picture, they both seem to have very wide eyes and open dilated pupils. And this thing in Uriel's case also I've mentioned it, that this wide big eyes was something that was observed by Uriel's aunt before her death. And here in this picture, these two babies don't look like they are dead. They were the alive babies at the point of time when their pictures were taken. So both cases, when your eyes are really big, there is a reason why, unless you have a shock, that time also someone's eyes can turn big. But when these babies were just happy babies at that point of time, when, or they were just newly born at that time, their photos might have been taken, or after a few weeks of their birth, parents could have taken that picture. At that point of time, if they have these big eyes, it is highly likely that some chemical contamination is going on. Chemical exposure has been going on in the baby's bloodstream, which is leading them to have these huge eyes. And that chemical exposure, from where is it coming? Again, if the babies were not diagnosed with any health problems, obviously no one is medicating the babies at that point of time then. But then also, can chemicals be found in a baby's bloodstream, and can chemical exposures happen to a baby even when none of the people involved in the baby's life has been medicating them deliberately for anything? They don't have anyone with prescriptions related to the drugs that could cause these big dilated pupils. Like if neither the mother nor the father are using any medications that cause dilation of pupils, if neither the children have any health issues that should give them access to any medications that need to dilation of pupils, but still their pupils are dilated, means some chemical exposure is happening to them from somewhere, which is leading to these big eyeball like dilation of pupils for these babies. And that's why only if the babies are again still available, or if their bloods were collected before their death, their blood samples need to be tested for the presence of chemicals that can lead to dilation of pupils. And then that needs to be correlated to what is the source of these dilation of pupils. So what are the possible sources of these dilation of pupils for these babies are involved with everything that the babies did while they were after they were born, as well as everything the mother did and mother was exposed to before the babies were born, when they were in her womb. Because from there the journey of a baby's health starts happening. A fetus starts when it is a small fetus inside a woman's womb. From the day the fertilization has happened, from that day onwards, whatever exposures to chemicals and environmental toxins and daily life usages that the woman is doing, all of it is slowly impacting the baby's health. And now, I don't know when she detected that she was pregnant, but initially, when you are not aware that you are pregnant, and initially or during pregnancy, there are many women who also get periods or spotting when they have when they are pregnant. whether the mom Savannah had spotting, whether the mom Savannah had continuous period flow or occasional random period flow during the babies, when she was gestating with the babies and when she was pregnant. At that time, if she had any spotting, if she had any periods in the first few months of her pregnancy, when she didn't know she was pregnant, because many women don't find out until the for 1 or 2 months later, when they miss their periods, or they might have had spotting and they might suspect maybe this, why am I getting spotting instead of normal usual periods. All these things, once they manifest, then after 2-3 months of wearing period pads, if they had periods or spotting, then they go to the doctor and find out they are pregnant. That can happen to some women. And again, it is not necessary that Savannah went through this journey, but any babies like similar to Ari and Leon, who are born with these big eyes, who are born with some symptoms like Ari developed, where Ari's skin was showing bruising, as well as penis was showing red blood coming out from the penis, means that some internal organ damage could have been going on with Ari. Because when bruising happens, though people assume that if child abuse is going on, someone beating a child can lead to formation of bruises on your hands, but or when elderly abuse is going on, again people can assume that bruises can be formed when someone is unusually attacking someone and leading to their bone damage or organ damage, right, leading to those purple blue colored bruises on your arms or legs or any body part. That is the general assumption. Why? Because abuse has been happening in the world. So when child abuse, elderly abuse, any kind of abuse happens, and a man, woman, child, baby, anyone presents to the doctor with a bruise, it is natural and normal to assume that some kind of abuse led to that bruise developing in their body. But I have also found in recent years bruise developing in my body outside of abuse when I didn't have any injury. There are two ways to get bruises also. If someone attacks you and is physically abusing you, then also you can get bruises on your body. But the other way to get bruises is if you have an accidental fall or if you have a deliberate fall. Like, meaning some people, if they want to implicate someone in their life for abuse, that time they can manufacture that as if they were falling and someone hit them, when that was not true. That can be a someone manufacturing a lie that someone is hitting them. That is a malicious way of pretending that you are being abused but you are not abused, which also some people can do. That is not happening in Ari's case. In Ari's case, something else is developing. And the theory, the difference between whether someone pretending to be injured by someone else can be found out in different ways. Whether someone is really getting injured by someone else and physically beaten by someone else leading to the bruise can be found out in different ways. And it can also be found out if someone is developing if someone fell down accidentally because of some other thing going on with their health, that can also be found out. And if someone fell down because of internal damage, no one fell down, nothing. In baby Ari's case, I don't believe anyone hit him or anyone did anything to him, and that can be proven in a right way. If that didn't happen, if it happened, that can also be proven in certain ways. If it didn't happen, that can also be proven. But now, for any medical investigator or judge or jury investigating such cases of child's presenting with bruise or child's presenting with some abnormal bleeding, understand that yes, there are predators in the world, there are abusers in the world, but what if a predator or abuser was not present in that circumstance? And then also, if a child presents with similar things, like when a predator or abuser is there, then what is happening? Then that next stage of what is happening, you need to understand the difference between what happens to a child's body when a predator mishandles a child or an abuser mishandles a child, and what happens to a child's body when there is no predator and abuser, but still some harm was showing up in their health. Does that make sense? And that's why I'm making this video, because you need to understand the distinction, and whether it is relevant for Ari and Rion's case, further investigation, right understanding will lead to understanding of whether this is true, or what I'm discussing here, whether it is 100% true of them, 50% true of what happened with them. That thing needs to be investigated and deeply delved into, deeply understood and examined, and right evidence needs to be collected to figure out what I'm telling, the merit and demerit of what I'm stating here. And if it is not true for Ari and Leon, there could still be another child like Ari and Leon who could present with these kind of symptoms, where you don't know whether abuse was going on, where you don't know whether some other thing was going on, and that other things information I'm giving here because the indicators of other things going on are also present in the same news article that I have given here for reference for all of you to read. If I get further details of this case, I believe even more information can be found out about what was going on there. If further questioning of the parents' life and lifestyle is done, again you can understand what are the factors that were influencing these babies' health. Because people don't realize it, but parents' lifestyle, and part 5, I very briefly mentioned some parent lifestyle related things that can influence a child's health. But there are many deeper ways in which every parent's choice does impact their child's health status and child's health outcome as well, irrespective of what age the child is. It's just that with infants and babies, or people when they are pregnant, at that time every single choice of both parents, the mother's choice definitely drives majority of the things that will mother's life and lifestyle and things that she's doing and exposed to. All of it majorly will impact a baby in the mother's womb. But a father's choices also indirectly and directly can impact via the mother, via the choices he's making, which can directly then impact the child. And that is what I'm trying to present here. And it is a long topic, again a complex topic, and because most of us are unaware how everyday simple choices impacts another human being. Many of us are unaware about it, and it is time we start slowly mindfully becoming aware of where every part of the choice that we make, how it impacts the people associated with us in our life. So coming back to now baby Ari's mother. When baby Ari's mother was pregnant, the relevance of period panties, relevance of even regular panties that women wear, relevance of cloth material related pollution is also a very important factor for baby Ari's mother, father, the two babies that died, and everyone who lives in that locality who buys things from similar places as these parents have been buying things from. And even if those are global markets, if those are companies that globally ship to millions of customers the same products, the same kind of products that impacted all of these people's health can also be partly responsible for impacting other people's health. It's just that some people may die out of long-term exposure or multiple exposures from many small harmful things. Some could have died from exposures to many great amounts of some harmful things and micro amounts of some harmful things, and some could not yet be dead but be on the path towards real bad sickness or death in the future if the right interventions and right measures aren't taken, and if the right understanding is not developed as to why a product might be harmful for them. Okay, so let's look now at baby Ari and baby Leon's case. Big eyes already indicates that, and they were unusually big eyes, and that can't happen. People might think just because they are born and they were born with these big eyes means that is a natural genetic thing of the babies. But 90% of the time, I'll tell you, it is more likely that it is not a people can assume, and if they continue living with big eyes and they had grown up as boys with these big eyes, everyone can assume that was just the genetic thing that they were born with. But it is also equally true that if they were living in a particular area where, for example, let's say the water of their housing society is polluted and contaminated with chemicals that can cause dilation of your eyes, then if there was one chemical or a multiple group of chemicals in your water supply and you're drinking that water regularly, naturally your eyes every day will show up with these big, large, dilated pupil-like eyes. But why is it showing up like that? Because your water is consistently having a particular level of chemicals in it that is consistently causing your eyes to be big. And it will be true of all the other people also living in that locality. Many other children might have the one with the, if you have a good filtration system in your home, then the child might have normal eyes or the parents might have normal eyes. But if you don't have good filtration system at home and enough contamination or enough exposure to that chemical is happening daily, everyone else can have these large eyes, and this is something that needs to be explored. And whether if water pollution related problems of their home was leading to these big eyes, that can easily be tested again by testing the water supply of the homes of the parents, and not just the water supply where the mother where the babies died. That home could have been a temporary home, because many parents, when they are pregnant, you might have been living in a 1 BHK, and then when you found out you are going to have twins, you might have moved to a 2 BHK or a larger home. So many people do change homes during their pregnancy, just before the babies are going to be born. So if they lived in other homes other than the home where these two boys died, the water supply of all the places where the mother was living in is necessary part to be examined, to understand whether any contamination from water pollution related sources from the places she has lived in has influenced these babies' health. Because how does it influence the baby's health before they were born? Is because at that time, whatever the mother was exposed to, if she lived in a home with haloperidol in its water supply, or haloperidol plus amphetamine plus some other drugs, all of which can cause dilation of pupils, there is, like, let's say, a hospital nearby because of which some cross contamination is happening, or there is a medical manufacturing facility because of which cross contamination is happening with their water, or it is a place where too many residents for many 10, 20, 30 years have been using all these drugs in there for medical reasons, and as a result, because many residents of a particular locality or a city are using a particular set of drugs for a long time, heightened accumulation of the drug has happened in that locality's water supply, leading to now the woman having water supply related contamination. She doesn't know it is happening, no one else knows it's happening, but the symptoms of something like this happening will eventually show up in, and it is possibly showing up in other residents' health as well. It's just that every bit of exposure to chemical is dependent on individual specific factors. That's why the size of a patient, length of time you were exposed to, and the same chemical, if my one glass of water, one bottle of water I'm drinking from the fountain of my home, and or a water tap water I'm drinking at a time, if I am an adult of 60-70 kgs weight, whatever that consumption of that water polluted with some chemical, the health harm that will happen to a 70 kg fully developed adult who had possibly 30-40 years of good healthy life, then if poisoning starts happening, the number of years it will take for me to develop some poisoning or exposure related chemical exposure related symptoms might take longer. And if I had 30 years of good healthy life, it might take maybe 10 or 15 years for me, and I'm a very healthy adult and not nutritionally challenged, it might take me 10-15 years to develop some symptom from that chemical exposure. Another adult who is not as healthy, or who was a frailer child or a 5-year-old child or a newborn infant, same chemical exposure in a small newborn 1-2 kg infant will be very different from the chemical exposure related symptoms that will manifest in a 70-80 kg adult. So if water pollution was there that was leading to some health harm, in the infants it's causing these big eyes. It's not simply causing big eyes, it's also causing other symptoms, but big eyes is definitely indicator of some environment pollution going on in their area, I feel, which could be air pollution related, which could be water pollution related, because via air also, let's say there is a dumping ground near their homes, it might be 5-6 kilometers away, and it is a dumping ground of medical waste, and in that medical waste dumping ground, like, all expired drugs are getting dumped there and maybe burnt there, or if not burnt, they are just simply getting dumped and buried in the soil, and from the soil it is going into the water water every time it rains there, and from the rains it is now spreading into the local water supply. So at that time, if it has gone into your local water supply, and then your local water supply now has that all these dumping grounds chemicals in your home, that can also be a reason why some chemicals are there. Or if the area is a area where medical waste is being burnt, again, when you burn the medical waste, some of the waste will be dispelled in the air, and from the air, if some exposure has happened, and again, if that chemical is still in a viable form after burning also to cause dilation, that can also be a reason for the dilation. So it could be water or air pollution. Most probably water pollution is the likely culprit, because the other symptoms are more water pollution related and food pollution related. That's why air pollution factor might be the minorest factor influencing these children's lives, though it is still possibly a factor in their health related things that happen to them. Okay, and then let's look at the water pollution now. If the mother lived in two different homes, one before when they found out about the pregnancy, and then one after they found out about the pregnancy. So in both the homes, water supply would not simply be impacting the mother's health, it was also impacting the father's health. It is also impacting their general lifestyle health, because every time I'm washing my clothes in the water, every time I'm washing my linen, bed sheets, every time the baby's bed sheets are getting washed, babies, if the babies were wearing cloth diapers, if the cloth diapers were, because some babies wear cloth diapers also, some babies wear store-bought diapers, and skin irritation from cloth diapers or store-bought diapers both can happen depending on different circumstances associated with the product you are using. And then if you are buying new clothes also from the market, in recent years in European Union they have started banning certain clothes with a chemical called nonoxynol or NPEs. This category of chemicals are highly they have found to be highly toxic to sea animals. So Greenpeace made a request for these to be banned in Europe, and Europe has done the ban, rest of the world hasn't done the ban, but rest of the world also doesn't understand the ban might, while in sea creatures the study has been done to show that this clothing chemical dye that is present, NPEs that are present in our clothes, which can be in my normal clothes like t-shirts and jeans, it can also be in my panties, it can also be in my bra, it can be in my cloth diapers, it can be in my period panties which are made of cloths, and this, or it can also be in my bed sheets, it can also be on the blankets used for covering a child when the child is sick or cold, it can be in many fabric materials that are used for covering our mattresses. In all of these products, these kind of chemicals and dyes are present that are actually, right now people know it causes harm to animals, but they also nonoxynol is a spermicide also. One of the chemicals of this class is used for spermicidal purposes, and as a spermicide, what does a spermicide do? It kills the motility of the sperms and it kills the sperms. So does it because, and it's a side means it kills. So the spermicide chemical nonoxynol 9 that can be used as a spermicide globally by many women when you wear diaphragms or when you wear spermicidal creams. At that time, certain products have these spermicides in them. So these spermicides, when especially if it has nonoxynol 9, the thing that has the potential to kill sperms also has the potential to cause for women skin irritation, vaginal problems, vaginal health problems, leading to health problems in them. And that spermicide also understand, because it can kill small microscopic amount of a sperm, it can also kill microscopic amounts of your own body's other cells as well when more and more spermicides are accumulating somewhere. So if you know that city has a population group where let's say 30% of the population uses spermicides, or the location in which they live, in that area a lot of spermicides are being used, at that time also you understand your water supply could have accumulated enough spermicides for it to now have become toxic to humans who live in that area. So if you use that spermicide for showering purposes, it can lead to skin irritation, organ damage. If you use that water without knowing that there is spermicide in your water, if you are drinking that water and consumed it, anything that can microscopically kill small sperms, that thing has also got capacity to start killing small cells of your body as well. And when I mentioned in my previous video, when cells were rupturing with blood in it, or when I bled, I knew that my uterine cells were getting or my urinary system cells, not uterine cells, I keep confusing this terminology, pardon me. But when I had bleeding, not related to period bleeding, but I had a one time health symptom of bleeding associated with some chemical exposures from food and drinks that led to my urine wanting to clear that toxin from my body. And while my urinary system was trying to clear the toxin from my body, because high content of chemical had accumulated in my body, that chemical, when it was passing through my renal system, some cells of my renal system were dying or getting ruptured or getting harmed by that chemical, leading to bleeding from my, when I'm peeing, blood was coming out from my pees. And that same thing, that with the blood coming out because of causing some harm in my urinary system, is also, if similar type of chemical is now present in baby Ari and Leon's daily life, where you don't know where the chemical is coming from. The chemical I was getting was from a food source, a material that is like a granola, crunchy granola bar. So that crunchy granola, peanut based or sesame seeds based crunchy granola bar like material was consumed by me, because right now I don't remember whether it was peanuts or sesame seeds, but it was a sugary crunchy granola thing that I was consuming. But it had some additional chemicals in it that was harmful for my urinary system, leading to bleeding occurring in my body. There was another time I again got bleeding, not from a crunchy granola bar, but from water pollution in my area, where the water was, every time I was going to the bathroom, for in India, we have bidets or water faucet that you use for cleaning your bum instead of using wet wipes for cleaning. So when water pollution is going on and you use that faucet for cleaning, at that time, if the water is polluted and your skin is sensitive to the pollutant, again I started developing rash and sensitive skin. And I was not at a stage where I was getting red rashes on my skin, but my butt area, as well as when you have periods, at that time you have to clean your thighs and period area also. So while I was cleaning my butt area or my thigh area and vaginal area, my skin was becoming tender, and my skin was becoming, I was feeling like as if I have bruises. I didn't have any visible bruises, and but I was getting tenderness of skin, and I was getting skin irritation from the soap like content in my water supply. And that soap could be nonoxynol, could be any other NPE, could be any other detergent like material that we use for cleaning our clothes regularly. All of these in combination, or just one of these chemicals, has the potential to cause skin damage, organ damage also internally. When enough of it has been consumed by someone, enough harm has been generated in your body. And everyone will not generate the same harm. Like the parent also could be drinking that water, washing their body while taking a shower in that same water, but the parent is a 80 kg, 70 kg, 110, 20, 30 pounds parent, whereas the child is only a 5 pound, 10 pound or even smaller child, right? So everything that impacts an adult in a particular way, for a small baby with his newly developing baby, that same thing will be more harmful for a baby, even if the concentration level is the same, the chemical in the water is same, but that same chemical can cause in different adults and different people and different children also. Even though these two are twins, they both actually had, according to me, symptoms related to bleeding, but one was bleeding from the penis, another's brain was bleeding. In baby Leon's case, they said that he had blunt force trauma, and they are assuming that baby Leon was hit by Nicole, and that's why he has this blunt force trauma. And she did say that the baby fell from, one time she said the baby fell from a bassinet, one time she said the baby baby fell from a bouncer. If the bouncer was where the baby fell from, the bouncer is hardly anywhere, not too much far from the ground. The bassinet is usually a little bit more higher. So irrespective of where he fell from, he could have fallen from a greater height or a smaller height. But if some chemical pollution was also part of the pollution causing parameters in these babies' life when they were a fetus as well, and when they were in their mother's womb, understand that this is also not something that has been studied yet properly. But I have found that if a area has a great water pollution related to chemical contaminations going on, and you are unaware about the chemical contaminations of the area, but the chemicals in the area can impact your blood development, impact your bone development, impact your body's nutritional, the nutrition that your body needs. Clean your body, our body needs 100% clean water, clear water to have good health. But if my water is contaminated with multiple chemicals, those chemicals are influencing, I'm not getting clean water. If I'm not getting clean water, I'm getting water plus other chemicals, then every developmental thing of my body can get impacted as a result of the chemical I am consuming. And some chemicals, while the study may or may not have been done about them causing bone density related problems, but there are chemicals, some drugs have been studied to have bone density problems, but there are many other chemicals, unknown chemicals or combination of chemicals together, that could also lead to bone density problems, that could also lead to bone fracturing without any very severe thing happening with you. With me, when I was a teenager, I was only like maybe 22, not teenager, I was 22 years old, because I was just going to go to US at that time. And I had a very simple, in India we have cement walls, and while walking in the night time in a room where I had turned off the lights and I was going to the bedroom, I hit my toes against the wall, cement wall of my building. Now, if I was a very healthy and nutritionally fit child, or I had better bone density, just hitting simply a little and very small distance of hit, and the force at which I hit the wall, my toes hit the wall, was not very severe blunt force trauma like, someone hitting you with a bat. Despite that, if someone hits you with a bat also, you can get fracture. But if you are in a delicate state of health where your bone density is low, where your bones might be having some pollution related health impact going on, which you don't know, like at that time as a 20-year-old, if you look at all my pictures from US when I was a 20-year-old, you will see I look like a very healthy adult. But though externally I'm looking like a healthy adult, internally my bone density was low, internally my bone was a little bit more delicate bone structure than the bone of a healthy, normal, non-nutritionally challenged adult, or some chemical toxin exposed adult. As a result, as soon as I hit my toes, because I'm just walking in a room, when you're walking in your home, are you going to be walking in big strides? No, you're just doing normal strides in your home. Even though I was doing a normal walk in my home and just heading towards the bedroom at a normal pace that I usually head towards, still my foot, after hitting a cement, and obviously cement structure is a solid structure, so that's why hitting the cement led to my bone fracture on my toes. And that fracture, though, if a better bone density person would have had that same accident, they wouldn't have had that fracture. Or if a person with better quality health had not hit the cement structure at that time, again they would not have had any injuries at all in comparison to me, because I was at a weakened status of health, which I understood only later. That day I didn't understand that I had a weakened status of health, that's why my bones fractured. But I had wondered that how did I end up fracturing my bones by simply hitting one time against a cement structure, right? So if you have good bone density, good bone health, you will not have that blunt force related trauma. Now that is why it is important, if the babies are still available, as like, if their babies were just buried and they are not being cremated and their evidence is still available, it is crucial that you do a bone density test to see whether, because then if how I very simply just by walking in a normal pace and hitting a wall ended up getting microfracture in my toes, a baby's bones, it's an infant, right? So infant has not developed their bones as much as they will develop slowly over time when they are progressing from infant to toddler ages. So you've seen infants are very wobbly, and we usually know that their head is very soft. So that means infants, this part is already known that their head area is of a softer material than what will develop eventually when they grow a little bit. And I don't know infant biology related things. I will put up in my additional information about how long it takes for developing their skull related things. I haven't studied that. All I know is infants have softer bone structure. So as a result, if they have this softer area, at that time, if the infant now falls also from a small bouncer to or a low lying bassinet, at both these time points when they fell, they will experience a blunt force trauma like symptom where fracturing of bones will happen. But it is not a trauma that is happening because someone hit them, but it is a trauma that has happened because they had a softer skull. And definitely, was it negligent of Nicole that when I mentioned in my previous video how scared I was of handling a 6-week child, 1-week child, I wouldn't handle only those smaller children because I'm scared of handling them. Or even if my friends gave me a 6-week child to hold or 4 weeks child to hold, I got so scared. I said, no, please, you hold the child. I don't think I can hold the child in the right way. I was scared about disturbing their this areas, how I was holding them. They were not sitting very rightly in the crook of my arm. While with my other friends, they were very easily able to hold them in the crook of their arms, maybe because they had caretaken other children, or maybe they were just better at it. Whatever it was, I was not really good at it and I got scared about holding them. But if Nicole was not that mindful and she didn't understand that holding a child requires the child needs to be held in a particular way, or the child needs to be strapped in a particular way. And I mentioned, like, strapping the child in a bouncer or a car seat can be complicated also, and you might think you have strapped the child but you may not have strapped the child. According to what she said to the, and again, did the child fall, in one report she said, like, I think she spoke to a 911 call also, and she spoke to the parents also. And if you're unfamiliar with child related stuff, you can there is a conflicting report in that newspaper article, where in the online paper article, where it says that in one report she said the child fell from a bassinet, which is a cradle like thing, whereas in other it says the child fell from a bouncer, which is a small baby seat like thing that is usually put on the floor. Now where the bouncer was put also is important. If the bouncer was put on the floor and the child fell just from the bouncer into the floor, lower injury will happen. But what if Nicole or the parents had put the bouncer on a dining table, and because Nicole was going to feed the baby, it is very likely that the child was in the bouncer on the dining table, but if the, or on the platform of the kitchen, there also she could have placed the bouncer. And she's not a new mother, she doesn't have the new mother's instincts, plus if she has never handled child previously, or she's very rarely been like a observational handler like I have been. I will be also very, if I was ever to become pregnant in the future, I will be very careful in the first few months of how to handle a child, and because of the simple fact that I'm a very risk averse person, and I do a lot of safety measures about all these height and weight and all these kind of analysis related to what is dangerous, what is not dangerous. But if you're not that kind of an analytical reasoning oriented person, or if just because you are new, and she also said she was very sleepy and groggy that day. And understand, Nicole had traveled from California to Philadelphia. I have had issues when I have traveled from Utah to East Coast. I've gone to, not Philadelphia, I said Philadelphia because I have gone from Salt Lake City to Philadelphia a couple of times. I've also gone from Salt Lake City to other East Coast states where my friends used to live. And every time I have visited them, I have had these sleep cycle disruptions where because of the time difference and everything, I sleep odd hours. I'm not able to sleep in the right hours according to my normal hours that people usually sleep at home. Plus, she's a PhD student. If she's a PhD student who's a very nocturnal PhD student, like some people like to study in the night time. So if you study till late in the night and then sleep, and if you are a student, some students do that. They can work long hours in the night, sleep late in the night, wake up a little late in the morning. All these also some students do. And if you are from California, you're more likely to do that because California has a much relaxing lifestyle than East Coast. I've been to California side also, so I know the personality types who live in California. It's a very chill lifestyle in some ways. So if you have had this chill lifestyle, plus you are a student, and I have experienced student lifestyle in multiple ages, in my 20s also, in my 30s also, I've experienced life as a US student. So, and I have hung around with students who go to school in 20s, who go to school in their 30s. So, grad school. So at that time you have a very disruptive sleep schedule. Plus, if you are traveling on to a different city with 3-4 hour time difference, again there is a 4-hour time difference for Nicole. So this 4-hour time difference could have disrupted her sleep schedule and understanding of sleep. So as a result, plus she also stayed in an Airbnb, and most Airbnb like places that I have stayed in, I've stayed in Airbnbs, I've stayed in homestays, I've stayed in hotels, I've stayed in normal inns and other motels. Every kind of place you can stay in the hospitality industry, except for really high class 5-star level hospitality industry places. Most until 4-star level places I have stayed in, from 4-star level to real cheap places. And when you are a grad student, you are more likely to stay in a very cheap place. So when you stayed in a cheap place, understand that many of the cheap places have the kind of water supply and pollution and other parameters where if you have drunk their water, or if you were also simply sleeping on their beds, but some chemicals were regularly being sprayed in those homes, that time for maintenance purposes and air freshening purposes and things like that, again your exposure to those chemicals from the air and from the bed linen and or the water of the place you were staying, all of them in combination can make you drowsy as well. So for Nicole, why she was sleepy could be because of jet lag, could be because of time difference and her student life related choices that she was making, and also could be because of the Airbnb place and the homes of Ari and Leon where she stayed, and the water supply there, if contaminated with any chemicals, that made her feel drowsy. Or if she ate food also in the streets, if now the bakery or restaurant where she bought food from, if they also had some food related contamination going on, from that food also you can get some health issues, all of which in combination could have led her to fall asleep. And then if she's was sleepy, or she fell asleep while taking she thought she's taking a nap, or she did take a nap of maybe 15 minutes or 30 minutes, and you can't, when you are not when you are a new mother also, you can fall asleep while taking care of a child. She's not even a new mother, she's just a temporary caretaker of the child. So her falling asleep, you can't really blame her because she's not used to doing this child caretaking related things. Plus she's in a different city, so she's also not, her body is not used to the chemicals of that city. So even if other people in that city can, if there is heavy level of some sleepy medication in your water supply, if someone stays in that city for 10 years, that medication, after having given them some, and for 10 years that water problem was existing, that person may not have that heavy drowsiness as a person who's never exposed to such chemicals. For them the drowsiness will be higher. Does that make sense? So if you've never been exposed to certain chemicals and suddenly your body gets exposure to it, and it is a chemical that has a potential to cause drowsiness in you, you can get that drowsiness. So she could have, that's why, fallen asleep from the chemicals in the food, chemicals in the water, because the same water, polluted conditions, the same water is used for baking or making a food, preparing a soup or preparing some ice cream or preparing your drinks, all of which you are consuming thinking it is normal food you are consuming, but it may not be normal food for your body and for your health status, and that's why you fell asleep. Or she been if she had just had her exams and she was studying overnight and she was tired and this was her vacation time when she has gone to visit them, at that time also after exams, many students have this pattern, we study a lot during our exams, or we are sleeping less during our exams. So for me this used to happen. In the weeks of my exams, I'm studying a lot, I'm sleeping only 5 or 6 hours, then after the exams I sleep 12 hours, just to make up, my body needs to make up that lack of sleep from the previous few weeks. So if she did that, that was also possibly a reason why she fell asleep. Okay, so she has genuine reason to fall asleep. It's not that she's negligent, it's just that she's unaware that these conditions would cause her to fall asleep. That's why, and the parents are also unaware of a graduate student's life, so they also don't know that she can easily fall asleep. She's not like a regular grandmother or regular person who lives in Pittsburgh, who will not have problems related to Pittsburgh's local conditions. But the problems related to Pittsburgh's local conditions, while it was not impacting maybe the parents at a heavier level, it was still impacting the babies and this Nicole, because all of them are new to this. Because the parents could have lived, if let's assume the parents were Pittsburgh residents and they have been living in Pittsburgh for 20-30 years. Again, that is also another factor. How long were the parents living in Pittsburgh? Were they residents of other states or other parts of Pennsylvania? All of that also are important factors that will determine Ari's and Leon's health condition. And for Nicole, it is Pittsburgh specific and San Diego specific and her lifestyle choice specific conditions that led her to be sleepy. Then if in sleepy thing she woke up and realized, oh my god, the baby is crying, the baby needs food, the mother had told me to feed the child at such and such time, and maybe half an hour has passed or 1 hour has passed and she feels now guilty. So when you're guilty, like maybe you were supposed to feed the child at 4 o'clock and it is now 4:30 or 5 o'clock, you will feel nervous and the child is also crying, so you will feel bad. If you're a conscientious person, then what you will do, you will be in a hurry to go and feed the child and make the whatever needs to be heated up for the child. And at that moment of time, if she put the child from the crib into, she picked the child from the bassinet, then put it into the bouncer, what if while picking the child from the bassinet, not being familiar how to hold a child, the child fell? That can also happen. Or while moving the child from the bed to the bouncer, while she was trying to strap the bouncer, if she didn't know how to strap the bouncer really well, again the child fell. So when she said the child from the bed bassinet or the child fell from the bouncer, is it kind of true like while transferring from the bassinet to bouncer the child fell? Or is it possible that the child fell 2 times? That can also lead to more trauma. If the child fell 1 time, it will lead to, maybe it would have led in 1 injury, but because the child fell 2 times, there were 2 injuries. That could also be the possibility. Or she's making a mistake between bassinet and bouncer, because that can also happen. If you're not familiar with children's items, you can confuse one thing with the other. So these things need to be examined. What she meant, did she know what is a bassinet? Does she know what is a bouncer? And of course she needs to tell the truth. I don't know if she lied also in this, because if the child fell while she was she put the bouncer on a table, the child fell from a bouncer is true, but maybe that table was a little bit more height than the bassinet also. At that time it is a greater height. So if a child falls from a greater height, greater is the injury. And what could have happened is, if she put the child in a bouncer and she strapped the child, but she thought she has strapped the child, but she didn't know how to fix the clicks and whatever I said in the first thing, the car seat belt like things that are there in the bouncer also, they can be confusing for someone unfamiliar with these devices. And if during the, because there was a health emergency with Ari, no one has taught her how to use this, she doesn't know herself how to use this. So do you see, this was a very accidental death most probably with the child Leon, when he fell and he hit his head. And along with the accidental death also, the other ancillary factor is, if during his mother's pregnancy and during the 6 weeks after he was born, in all these times, if he has lived in areas where bone development related factors are little harmed because of chemicals in those areas, then his bone development also might not have been as strong, leading to more trauma. Of course, he's a 6 weeks infant, so if he had been a 1 year infant or 6 months child, that same fall might not have resulted in his injury, but because he was a smaller baby, it resulted in such an injury. And it is an unfortunate thing, it is a painful thing for Ari's parents, but Ari's parents have to understand what happened with Nicole could have happened with any other person who was unfamiliar caretaker of a new baby. This could have transpired even with Savannah or the dad or any other person taking care of this child, because sometimes inadvertent accidents happen if you are new to something and you don't know how to do it. Of course, the greater level of care you take, it is better, but are the parents also responsible for keeping the child in the care of a person who is not possibly ever been pregnant, not possibly ever handled a small infant? So when they trusted her to take care of the child, I understand that you put a trust because she's a good person, so she's more likely to be a safer person. But again, because she is unfamiliar with child caretaking, and because if she had health problems where she hadn't slept for many hours, that could have resulted in a problem. One time I stayed, not one time, a couple of times this has happened with family and without family. I've stayed in areas where it was a very shady area, and I didn't know that it is going to be a shady area, because with online reviews sometimes you don't understand that you're going to stay in a shady area. So when I ended up staying in a shady area, I completely couldn't sleep only in that hotel or Airbnb. And then if I can't sleep in that place, it was a very shady area, and then I ended up going to my friend's home, which is a cleaner home, less shady area, or I know that it is my friend's home, so I feel safe there. Can I also fall asleep in that home, right? So all of these things could have resulted in her falling asleep. That needs to be given as a consideration for her. Of course, another thing that people need to understand is the same chemicals that were causing Ari to bleed and because the bruise that Ari has, if people assume that he was punched or hit by someone and that's why he has a bruise, the trauma that the organ will have when someone has punched it will be very different from if post-mortem analysis is done. If it is a organ damage related damage, then where the trauma will be there. If the bruise is happening because the organs were bleeding, because if he is bleeding blood from his penis or both poop, his stools also had blood, and his that also needs to be examined. Was he bleeding internally from the stool also, like whether his gastrointestinal tract was also impacted, whether his just urinary tract was impacted, or both were impacted? That needs to be examined if the diaper was bloody. Okay, like if the diaper was only a urine diaper and then it was bloody, then it means the urinary tract system was impacted by some chemical leading to this bleeding. And then if the urinary tract system is impacted, or if the diaper was bloody, filled with stool, and the stool was bloody, that means also the liver could have been impacted. And a bruise in the stomach, below the belly button, indicates either kidney related or liver related malfunction as well, or gastrointestinal tract related, intestinal problem related malfunction as well, because if that chemical is very highly toxic, it can be leading to internal damage and rupturing of cells, leading to bleeding for the baby. But because the rupturing of cells are happening, internal bleeding is also happening and internal organ damage is happening, which will present as a blue bruise or whatever color bruise it was. It will cause a bruising like status to happen because internal bleeding is happening. If you've ever watched any patient who has if people are having are put on blood thinners because their blood is clotting a lot, and if their blood thinners are now not at a right level for them, because blood thinners, when you're given warfarin like medication for blood thinning purposes in the elderly, you may have found many elderly people with bruises or bluish veins on their arms, and bruises can form on their arms and legs and body. Why does blood thinner cause that bruising in these people? Because if elderly people or anyone who is on blood thinners, they are supposed to be continuously monitored by their doctor for the blood thinning capacity of their body. Like their dosage of the blood thinner needs to be consistently adjusted. So now if they haven't been to the doctor to adjust the blood thinner's dose, at that time what is happening is, if because they haven't been taken to the doctor regularly, or the doctor has not scrutinized that a change in their blood thinner's dosage needs to happen, at that time if they were getting overdose, like let's say someone had 60 kg weight at a particular point of time, and the medicine that they were being given and the dosage they were given based on their 60 kg weight is not relevant now, because they might have lost weight and now they are 55 kgs. So if you have lost weight, at that time your dosage might need to be adjusted. If you have gained weight, at that time also your dosage need to be adjusted. But when you lose weight, what is happening is the dose you are getting is higher dose than what your body requires. Or if you have had a change in home, and your home environment was one factor that was needing you to take blood thinners, now living in a different home, maybe in that home you don't need that high level of blood thinner that you used to use earlier. So at that time, dosage adjustment, if that hasn't happened, what is going to happen is your blood will be the medication will be thinning your blood too much, leading to some internal bleeding like formations in your body, leading to that also. And if your skin is also very sensitive and other elderly problems are also going on, that time also if an elderly goes and hits a wall by accident, or sits on a couch suddenly by accident in a very jumpy way, or slips and falls on the road, at that time also you will get bruises. But does it mean that that elderly was abused? No, it just simply means the blood thinner is causing a lot of the clotting is not happening, right? Because blood thinner is there. When the clotting is not happening, the bleeding is more, and when the bleeding is more, the bruising is more. So like how in the elderly a bruise can be formed in the elderly when they simply fell or simply hit their hand accidentally against a wall, or when their blood thinner dosage needs to be adjusted and it hasn't been adjusted in a while, leading to bruise formations in their arms and legs and other parts of the body. Same way with a baby. Again, whether blood thinners were given to the baby, that is also another thing that needs to be considered. Like during if the mother had, let's say, pulmonary embolism or other things in her health, or something was going on with the mother's health that led to someone her taking blood thinners, and if the baby is breastfeeding, the blood thinners from the mother can be transmitted to the baby. Or if that area is an area where a clinic is there, Coumadin clinic is there, and blood thinners are used regularly by patients in that area, again, is the water supply having blood thinners, which will also lead to internal bleeding in a baby, where the baby, how is the baby getting exposed? The baby is getting exposed if there is indirect water contamination. The water is there in that area contaminated with a blood thinner. Mother is drinking that, making food in that. Mother is drinking and eating food like that, or she goes to a restaurant which is near to a clinic where she regularly frequents that restaurant for food. Whatever is going on, like, because in America, if you are it depends on what is your family pattern. If you eat outside, the places you have eaten, their water and other things need to be also examined. If you eat and drink outside, most of the time all the drinks and water related things need to be examined. If you are drinking and eating at home and cooking your food at home, your majority of your problems will be from the home water supply. And irrespective of whether you eat at home or not, most of us do bathe in our own homes. So we bathe and clean our clothes and do at least minor level cooking in our own homes. So everything related to your home water supply is always relevant in understanding what is going on with when the mother is eating and drinking, whatever she has consumed, whatever she has been exposed to via her clothes and other, if she wears hairsprays, makeup, All of these products are slowly impacting her health and going into her bloodstream, all the chemicals from all the things that she is exposed to. And then it can be chemicals, it can be microbes, it can be multiple sources. But with Yuri and Ari, with Ari and Leon, both of them are more likely to have had chemical poisoning related problems, which could have come from directly from the mother if they are breastfeeding from the mother, and indirectly from the water supply where they are getting bathed. It could also have come a little bit from the hospital where they were kept at when they were born. In that hospital's local environment conditions are also influencing these babies' health. It can also come from any other place the mother frequents and father frequents, because if the father is also going to certain places where some chemical exposure is there, his work environment is such that some chemical exposure is there, after he comes back home, if he is tired, if he hasn't cleaned himself, or his even if he cleans himself, if his body has absorbed enough toxins. When toxins are there in our body, sweat is one mechanism the toxin is getting detoxed. So the father's sweat at that time, if you are lying on the same bed with the baby, or you are even holding the baby and you are wearing sweaty clothes, understand that anything that you are toxed with, if it is released into your clothes and the baby is in contact with the father also, at that time the father's profession's chemical exposures can end up invariably getting transmitted to the baby. So every microscopic level of contamination from different sources are piling into these babies slowly, from father, from mother, from other people handling the babies, from any place the babies went to for checkups from the doctor. If the babies were rested on a particular piece of cloth, if that cloth at home or particular piece of cloth and the hospital, they were swaddled with a particular piece of cloth in the hospital, all of those clothing related chemicals, everything impacts a baby's health. It's just that if they were previously in a cleaner earth, in a better, less chemically infused earth, the exposures were such microscopic levels or such negligible levels that even if the babies were impacted in health by those chemical contaminations, nothing happened to them. But now, because we are in a more polluted earth, more higher level of chemical contaminations could be present via multiple sources, and where the source of toxin exposure happened to these babies needs to be determined. But these are all the multiple places from which they could have had very microscopic toxins also getting absorbed in their body, and 5-6 different microscopic chemicals together causing the damage, or they could have had 1-2 chemicals high amount exposure causing their damage. Because if the mother was taking some drugs for her health issues, any drug she took for her health issue, and the father was also taking some drugs for their health issues, again, if some of the drug is getting sweated out by them, or the mother is feeding the baby and that's why it's going via breast milk, both their health conditions and medication usages directly and indirectly can impact these babies. And if the mother was having spotting and she wore period panties, or she wore panty liners, or she wore diapers, the diaper chemicals and other toxins in the diapers, I bought many many period related products in India. They all claim to be hypoallergenic. They have been tested for no kind of problems with women's health. They've been tested to be safe in women, and all these claims are being made in these products. Still, I was getting heavy bleeding when using these products. Same way, if those same materials that are used for making my period panties, and if those same materials are also present in making the child diapers, and understand he had bruise right under his belly button, so any chemical that is there in the diaper sits usually near our belly area, right? So anywhere below the belly button is where the diaper is sitting. So from the diaper, the chemical could have been continuously been absorbed by a baby, and that chemical now leading to both, and it is also covering his pelvic region, so it is also irritating his penis, leading to cell disruption. It is first getting absorbed by the baby, then after getting absorbed by the baby, any organs that are there where the diaper is sitting on the baby's body, those are all the organ systems, and all the nearby organ systems will be slowly absorbing the toxin, right? The major first impact of the toxin wherever the diaper is sitting is the pelvic area, is where the major first impact of the toxin will be there. But if some major organ is also there, like a liver is there, the liver damage can start happening. If renal system is there, renal system damage will happen. The damage in the intestines can start happening. Damage in the baby's direct urinary tract can also start happening, leading to bleeding of the urinary tract related cells, causing the increase in bleeding in his diaper. Does that make sense? So if chemical pollutants were causing his pollution harm, you will find the chemical contaminants in the diaper itself that is still there in their homes. You will find the contaminants in the water used in their homes, in the water of the other places that I mentioned here. It can also be in the clothing material, direct clothing material of the baby also, like if the baby is wearing onesie, if the baby is wearing if it is a cold, whatever the baby was wearing, whichever cloth material it was wearing, the cloth material itself, if it has nonoxynol or NPE like chemicals in it, or any other chemicals that are used for dyeing our clothes, if we buy, like I have found high level of chemical content in clothes that are very bright in color, the real bright colored clothes or clothes that look very shiny, all those clothes have higher level of chemical contents in them that can be harmful to our skin and then harmful to our internal organs as well. I have also found clothes with these nonoxynol and NPE like materials in them in India. I have not done any chemical testing, but the soapy and surfactant texture is present in these clothes. And though earlier if you wash them very well, 1 or 2 washes would lead to these chemicals being easily washed away from your clothes. Nowadays the water pollution levels are so high that even if you wash these, like I bought recently a cotton bed sheet from a very well-known retailer of here, and even though I bought that bed sheet, I kept washing. I have washed it at least 3 or 4 times in the washing machine. Even then its soapiness has not gone away. Same way, not just with the clothes that I have bought, a bed sheet that I have bought, I have also bought multiple clothes in recent years with these kind of dyes in them, and after you wash them they don't leave the clothes, and if they have not left the clothes, it causes extreme I get heightened inflammation and skin irritation. So I can't even if I bought like 10 clothes in the last 2 years, I can't wear those 10 clothes because half of those clothes have so much dyes and chemicals in them. Every time I wear them, it is impacting my health. Why is it impacting my health? Because as I said, I have done tests which have shown that my liver is slowly entering toxicity stage. My kidneys are also entering toxicity stage. So my body is heightened, the toxicity level in my body is high. I need to be detoxed of the chemicals that are harming my health in order to become better in health. And I need to reduce exposure to toxins to stay better in health. But if both are not happening, if there has already been enough toxins consumed by me via clothes and food and water and local water supply, local air supply and everything, and then if that has led to now organ system damage, my body is not in an optimal condition. While I look like a very healthy person, technically I'm not a healthy person. Same way, while these babies look like healthy and fit babies, actually speaking, they were not healthy and fit babies. It's just that they were looking healthy and fit, and when the diaper was put on them, other clothes were put on them, the bedsheet on which they were being laid, the hospital places and other places that they were visiting, all of these materials could have had small contaminants in them. Plus, if during pregnancy time also mother had a lot of chemical exposures from different water supply related sources, food supply related sources, all of them were already from the mother. When you are a nurturing mother, when you are when a fetus is developing in your womb, at that time, the 9 months of pregnancy, everything the mother does, many of the things, if they are harmful to the mother and can be harmful to the baby as well, or many things may not be harmful to the mother because the mother is a robust human being, whereas for an infant it is still going to be more harmful because it's a developing infant. So at that time, things that the mother may not have any problems consuming can still end up harming the baby. And then it was slowly some organ damage might have been happening, or other health damages might have been happening while they were in the fetus stage only. That's why only in 6 weeks, by 6 weeks when they died, and if organ damage was developing in their body, understand that part of the organ damage happened in the 6 weeks they were outside the mother's womb, but the other part of the damage could have also happened to the baby while they were developing as a infant in the while they were developing and growing in the mother's womb. And this is important factor. Why? Because if she again becomes pregnant and lives in the same household or lives in the same area where the problems related to environmental pollution has not been resolved, she doesn't know that if she consumes certain water, she doesn't know if she drinks certain drinks, eats certain foods, they will harm her health. Because it could be not the water supply of her home also. Maybe she loves to drink, Pepsi and Coke occasionally, or she loves to drink orange juice, she loves to drink milk, but the area from where the milk is coming, the area from where the Pepsi is coming, the area from where the whatever drinks she use, whatever fruits she loves to eat, she might have been a very health conscious mother also. This can happen to a health conscious mother or a less health conscious mother, irrespective. If it depends on from where the fruit is coming. If I eat a lot of fruits, but if all my fruits are coming from an area where some local contamination is going on, my fruits will also have some contamination. Like this is actually coconut water, and it is tasting very nasty because the way the area from which this coconut is coming from has some water pollution going on, which is now invariably a long-term water pollution, not a very short-term. When short-term water pollution is there, your fruits and vegetables will not have contaminations or will have so microscopic level contamination, it will not harm your health. But if consistently for many years water pollution is going on in your area, then there is no clean water left for the plant to use for its normal activities. And then when no clean water is left, then the water that you will get from your fruits and vegetables, that water will be contaminated with the water pollution of that area. Does that make sense? So that's why whatever she consumed during pregnancies, all those food groups need to be changed or re-examined or deeply examined before she becomes pregnant again. And if they follow and get distracted with charging Nicole or doing things with Nicole, she can consider Nicole liable for Leon's death, because Leon might have fallen down and hit his head, and if he had never fallen down while under her care, he would have been living still alive. But he could still have died, because why? Because while blunt force trauma was present in the CT scan, and that trauma definitely happened because the baby fell down, there was also internal bleeding, and because internal bleeding is there, they are assuming that he must have been hit really hard, that's why internal bleeding happened. But the internal bleeding could have happened irrespective of the trauma. The internal bleeding that was showing up in Ari's health as bleeding from the penis could have been the same and the bruise in his stomach area, where which organ got damaged there. You can easily do a histopathology if the baby is still present for post-mortem. Then the histopathology will show if chemical rupture, because the chemical rupturing of cells will be very different from blunt force rupturing of cells, will be very different. It should be very different. The presentation of it should be very different, or how the bleeding is transpiring will also possibly be different. Someone who works in forensic pathology will possibly know this deeper than I do, but I do know enough pathology to know that pathologically this thing can be proven, or if no one has worked on proving these differences, they have to start working on this field in this way. And that's why if they had internal bleeding, it's not necessary that the baby Leon would have survived, because if Ari died in the hospital because of them, whatever was going on with his health, like internal damage was going on and organ damage was going on, same organ damage that caused Ari to have lower body related harm, pelvic area related organ damages going on, in the other baby could have resulted in brain related damages going on in their body, or the other baby also could have had organ damages going on, just that his bleeding might not have started, his level of bruising might not have started. Let's say the water of their home was polluted, and here the difference in what will happen is, when two babies are there, mother will pick up one baby, clean up the baby, and maybe with the first if with the first baby she might be very careful in cleaning him and everything, but by the time she has cleaned the first baby, she's so tired. With the next baby she's very quick in cleaning him. So then what will be happening is the baby she carefully cleaned at that time, if the water pollution was there in their water, the one who is getting cleaned more carefully is getting exposed to more chemicals, and the one who's getting quickly cleaned, he's getting less exposure to the water. That's why in Leon's body, what happened to Ari might have presented again in the future date, but maybe in a few months later after Ari had passed away. So this thing also the parents need to think about, reflect about, pray about, understand deeply about, because in the next baby if they have in their family, again, if the water pollution problem never got solved, never got detected, and that was responsible for this, the food you're eating, their problems were not solved, or the clothing these babies wore, the diapers these babies wore, not just diaper. In recent years, I said in India we use water faucets for cleaning and purposes when we pee and poop. But in before I landed in India from US, I got so habituated using wet wipes and paper towels that in India, because normal wet wipes I didn't like using them, I used to use baby diaper wipes. So I was using baby diaper wipes for adult wiping purposes as well, instead of using the paper towels that you get in India. I didn't like the paper towels. So I have used baby wet wipes for many diaper wipes for at least 6-7 years in India, and in these 6-7 years of usage of baby wipes, the level of water pollution from these companies have gone up so high that in the recent years many of these wipes were giving me skin irritation, were burning my skin. One time even a alcoholic wipe that should be used for, that are used by diabetics for wiping your skin, that was burning my skin, because something chemically is going wrong in these products. Some chemical changes have happened in these products, plus my body is sensitive to allergens right now. So when organ damage is going on, at that time my heightened sensitivity to any toxin is happening, and that's why even those products that claim to be safe for children, safe for use in children, those products I was not finding them to be safe for use. I was repeatedly getting burning sensation on my skin and redness and tenderness in my skin after using baby wipes. So imagine now if that thing was also happening to baby Ari, and like if the wet wipe they used for it might have been a new batch they have opened. Like understand, like batch to batch variability also happens, because the same brand that I used to use 5 years back, now I'm having a problem. Why? Because their batch has changed, the year in which the product has been manufactured has changed, the location from which it might be coming to my home might have changed, the place at which the wipe is being manufactured, if their water supply has got contaminated, that could be leading to the contamination in my wet wipes. So as a result, if let's say during in the first 1 month of the babies, whatever wet wipe you used was good wet wipe, which was not health harming wet wipe, but now that you're using a whole you will easily use up a bag of wet wipes sooner in a small baby. So once you've used up your bag of wet wipes and it's a new batch of wet wipes, what if the new batch of wet wipes were the toxin containing wet wipe, or it was a wet wipe plus diaper plus the clothes the babies are wearing plus the water supply of the home and other factors in combination that led to Ari's health harm and then eventually death, and would have led to Leon's health harm too, because he's a twin. It's just that Leon was maybe not getting exposed so much to the, or let's say mother and father are cleaning and Ari is always getting cleaned by the more careful, more slower parent, whereas the other one is getting cleaned by the less careful, quicker parent. So that quicker parent will not be cleaning that easily, or might be doing it very quickly in such a way that the wet wipe doesn't touch their surface. Or people have these patterns also of cleaning, very different way of cleaning also, because I've observed this when I was being taught by my preschool teachers how to help with the baby's child caretaking. I understood that each teacher who was teaching me how to do it had their own slightly different way of doing the diaper change. So that slight difference also in diaper change can result in major difference in which in how you change a child and what toxins the child is getting exposed to. Because like some teachers, like if the child is diaper is not wet at all, like they have not peed, they had not pooed, but they were just changing the diaper because certain number of hours have passed. At a time, many teachers would not, some teachers are there who will not wipe the child too much with the wet wipe or anything. They will just do one wipe and that's it. Whereas there are others, and if there is poop and pee, when there is more poop, then you use more wipes. When there is pee, you use lesser wipes. This is how someone will do it. No wipes, less wipes, large amount of wipes. Whereas there are some, if they use 4 wipes always, they will always use 4 wipes to wipe the child, irrespective of whether they have peed, they have not peed, whether they have pooped, they are having a clean diaper, they are just changing the diaper. So that also leads to a difference. If two parents are doing this two different way of caretaking of a child, then what will happen is the child who is getting minimal exposure to these wet wipes, that person might have a little less toxin exposure, right? So think about it. These are all factors that need to be thought about in child caretaking practices globally, and in understanding where the product, which product to blame and where the blame lies and where the rectification needs to happen. If the wet wipes are contaminated, wet wipe manufacturing factory has to change certain policies. Diapers are causing health harm, diaper factories have to cause change in policies. The clothes supply manufacturer might have to change some policies. The water supply of the local municipality might have to change their policies. The way in which we normally operate life, that also needs to start changing. The parents might in future, when they are going to have another baby or any other baby in this area who is now suffering from some similar rashes, similar things that people are considering it's a rash, but what if it is not a rash, it's a chemical burn happening, it is a chemical damage, related organ damage happening. The doctors also in the medical facilities need to start waking up, because if you don't know it's a chemical damage, if you don't know it is a chemical causing organ damages, you can't find the drugs to treat that, you can't give the treatment related to chemical poisoning related treatments if you're not aware that chemical toxins are causing some damage to a child, right? You can't give the right treatment. So in order to arrive to the right treatment, you have to first understand the cause of what is causing the harm. And again, in order to arrive for the right justice also, you have to understand what were the many things that led to the harm than just simply the last thing that led to the harm. And in that also, just because Leon had blunt force trauma, if you assume Ari was also abused by her, that could also be a false perception. So please examine this, determine this in a more deeper manner. And yes, she should have been careful with a child, but maybe she should also refuse taking care of a child when she's not capable of taking care of a child. Some of us don't know how to say no. I know many people who don't know how to say no. I said no to my friends where I can't caretake the child, and said yes to those friends when I knew the level of caretaking they are asking from me, I can do it. But there are many people who don't know how to say no to things that they are not familiar with, and then you get stuck then in this situation. If she was a kind who knew that she might be nervous about taking care of the child, or if she was very tired, understand that if you are tired, if you can't take care of, like in my friend's home, sometimes she has invited me to her home, and I was at that time doing the PharmD program, and I had 12 hours of work. Even though she might have invited me to help her a little with child care taking, but I had admission and submissions in those days, so I couldn't help her with her child care taking. Or she was pregnant, maybe she wanted me to give her company to talk to her, but I had to say no to her. Like, even though she invited me to her house and I went to her house, it turned out that day, even when I was free, I could give her time, give her child time. But when I was not free and I had 12 hour or 1 whole week of submissions to do, at that time I was just simply sitting and doing my submission. I couldn't focus on and I had timed submissions to be delivered for that program. So because timed submissions are there, I am on the 12 hour 14 hour work continuously I am doing. I didn't even sit with her and have half an hour lunch also some days. Whereas when I was freer, I spent the whole day, half a day with her, spending a lot of time hanging out with her, doing whatever she loves to do. I've done all those things with her and her child when I was freer. So this thing people have to understand, that if you are busy, if you're not able to do it, say no to doing it. Say That is also maybe some lesson for another girl like Nicole, who's been asked to take care of a baby that she can't take care of because her life is in such a way that she doesn't know how to take care of a baby, or she is too tired. And when you are tired, you should not become a caretaker of a child at that point. If you have the free time, you have the relaxed time, if you have a good health condition going on with you, that is the time when you should say yes to this. This also happened recently with me. I'll maybe post it in some other video. But learn to say no to certain things when your health is not good, or when your life circumstances such that you will not be a good caretaker to a small infant, because a small infant's caretaking anyways needs a lot of different elements to be in place for them to get a safe, healthy environment. But along with that, now the modern life's threats are also there, which many people do not understand are threats of modern life, that many parents have to wake up to. And that is also a reason why many families, many countries of the globe are wondering why their patient population is not having kids in a younger age. Understand that there is a genuine reason why new population should not emerge on earth before you are able to solve the problems of already older populations whose health are being impacted in such a way that the treatment or right system to provide safety and good health is currently disrupted on earth. But because the awakening to that disruption is not there, slowly only universe has resulted in many people having this subconscious choice of not marrying sooner, taking time to marry someone, getting married after their 40s or later on in life, not having kids right now in their life even if they got married in their 20s and 30s, because health supportive factors that are deeply needed for real true child rearing things. Right now, if you look at Uriel and Ari and Leon's cases, those health supportive factors are not there in their life. People don't realize why they are not there, but now people's realization has to occur, because it's not true simply of these 3 children who died, but it is also true of other children who are not dying, but they are still suffering because of either misdiagnosis, misunderstanding of their conditions, mistaken perceptions of what was past safe for them right now may not be safe for them. Like, was it safe for you to eat fruits of certain kinds which we know nutritionally they should give you good health? Definitely, if oranges are supposed to give you vitamin C, you should consume oranges. But if that orange that is coming to my home is contaminated with pesticides, is contaminated with other chemicals or microbes that are going to be harmful for my health, do I have to now do the critical discernment of realizing from where I should buy the oranges, or should I just continue to keep buying oranges from whatever source I get, and doesn't matter how good or bad that orange is? If I am not paying attention whether I'm consuming good oranges, bad oranges, all of them will in combination will decline my health, decline my child's health if I am pregnant, decline that baby's health after birth also when I am feeding the baby. Also, if my health is declining, if you are not breastfeeding a baby also, if anything is impacting a parent's health, it impacts the child's health. And if anything impacts a child's health, it impacts a parent's health. There's always a bidirectional thing also going on in family. That's why healthier society exists when you create the steps and understand the steps towards better health. It can't happen if you are in a mistaken perception about what is bad health, what is good health. That's why I'm making these videos, because perception of people about what is good health is distorted right now because of multiple new things that have emerged on earth that many people are not understanding influences health directly and indirectly. And those things, if not rectified, if not changed, if not done in the right mindful better evolved ways of doing, you will continue the problems that are continuing on earth rather than resolving it, because the methods that people have used in the past to resolve it right now are not enough methods to resolve current earth's current health, current life, current social system, current medical system, current business practices related problems. And all of these areas need a revamp in all of these babies cases, in all of our health and life related cases. So I hope this was informative. Anyone wants to connect with me, please connect with me via my social media pages that I have put in my description section, or post a comment here about any question that might have arisen after you have listened to this video. video. Thank you very much. Have a great day.